Hello, my crazy Southern Cross Heathen here. How are you all? I know this is a little late. Things got away from me over the weekend. But anyway, so here's my awkward tips. Number two, I mentioned I was going to do on books. Because I want to keep these short, I'm only going to do a couple of books at the time. So I'm going to call this part one, and this is going to be 3 books. These probably are going to be my top 3 for anyone that's new to heathenry, looking at learning some more about it. One of them is probably something that no one really thinks about, but I think that it's really important for anyone who is reading any sort of history, mythology, lore, folk tales, anything like that. So let's get straight into it. My first one is E.H. Carr, What is History? Penguin Books, so it's pretty cheap. I picked mine up for $10 at the bookstore, and to me, it's an essential. Don't read it from cover to cover because you will get really bored, and that's one big thing that a lot of people find. That, I mean, if you can read cover to cover and take it in, that's great. But me, I can't. I read bits and pieces at a time. Otherwise, I get really bored, and then I'll put the book down and I'll forget about it. So I like, if I want to know something in particular, I'll go to the books that I want to read and just read that section. I find I take in a lot more if I do it that way. One thing, I've made a couple of little things that I wanted to mention about this particular book. So a couple of quotes. When we attempt to answer the question, what is history? Our answer, consciously or unconsciously, reflects our own position in time and forms part of our answer to the broader question, what view we take of society in which we live. Now, I find that really important, especially from historical texts. Every historian has their own viewpoint, they have their own opinions, their own morals and ethics that they live by. And so a lot of historians will actually write from that perspective. So, if you find someone that's extremely hateful against a certain culture, you'll find that they'll be more critical of that culture. I haven't got it here today, but Tacitus is a good example of writing from an opinion base, but I will explain more of that when I do Tacitus. So another one is, that was from page number 8 too, if anyone was looking for that. Page 131, there's 2 that I wanted to point out. And we have here, when we seek to know the facts, the questions which we ask, and therefore the answers which we obtain, are prompted by our system of values. So you can see there, a lot of historians are objective, opinionated, not objective, and opinionated. They have their own values. They grew up in a certain way. A lot of our history, especially during the 13th, 14th, 15th, 16th, 17th, 18th, and 19th centuries, were all very Christian-based opinions, because that was what was prominent at the time, with the conversions and things like that. So a lot of historians were brought up in that belief system. And so that belief system carries over into their explanations of, how people did their rituals and things like that. You'll find a lot of people will mention that they're barbaric, each their own. Another point on this page, the objective historian is the historian who penetrates most deeply into this reciprocal process. 161. I want to try and keep these short, so I'm just going to get into it. Carr argued that while no historian can claim for his own values an objectivity beyond history, an objective historian can be said to be one with a capacity to rise above the limited vision of his own situation in society and in history, and with the capacity to project his vision into the future in such a way as to give him a more profound and more lasting insight into the past. Several critics of what is history strongly objected to this treatment of objectivity and defended the traditional view that the objective historian is one who forms judgments on the basis of the evidence despite his own preconceptions. So, yeah, everyone has their own opinion. As I said, read everything critically. Read everything. Take what you want from it. If you don't agree with something, it doesn't mean that the author is no good or is full of it or anything, because you've got to understand that they're writing from their opinion, their beliefs, and their educational values as well. So now that one's out of the way. The next two, of course, are going to be the Poetic and the Prose Eddas. My favourite Poetic translation is from Carolyn Larrington. And I picked this up at, I was living in Queensland at the time, so QBD bookstores. They were fantastic, really good price, and a lot of the times if you can't find it in store, check online, and you could probably get it online. Also, another place that I get a lot of my books now, well, actually I always have, is the Book Depository. It has free delivery worldwide. They're really quick delivery. I've only had 2 incidences, and both times were rectified really quickly. So, excuse me. So that's a great source, especially for those of us here in Australia where postage can really take up a lot of our funds, especially when we're trying to order stuff from overseas. You'll find sometimes that the postage is more than the actual item itself, which is, I think, ridiculous, and we are punished for being so far away from everyone. Okay, so that's obviously an important one. My little notes, I'm currently in a little study group, and we're going we're doing let me start again. We are doing the Velospa, the Seeress's Prophecy. All my ums again, sorry, I do apologise. We are on the 3rd week, doing stanzas 19 to 27, I think. But yeah, I missed last week, so as my punishment to myself, I went and hand wrote out the list in my little notebook, and I'm going to do a video on that as well. Okay, so, and of course, the Prose Edda. A lot of these books are Penguin, so if you can't find them anywhere, get onto the Penguin Classics Penguin Publishing website, and you will most likely find them there. Again, I picked this one up off Book Depository. So this translation is by Jessie Byock. I hope I said that right. So they would be my first 3 and my top 3. I know I said that I wouldn't do any, top books, but if for anyone who wants to know about Asatru, heathenism, Odinism, Northern European tradition, those three would be my top three, especially E.H. Carr's What is History. For anyone who wants to look into any mythos, that book should be your number one. Okay, so I'm going to leave it there. I'll post this one, and I'm going to do a couple more videos, so you will see me wearing the same thing. But yeah, so I look forward to telling you more about some more books that I have. All right, goodbye, my crazies.